Hey folks, I'm Dave. Welcome to the basement. So I don't just collect vinyl records. I consider myself a music collector. So it's for me, it's more about content than format. And so I still buy compact discs, a lot of them actually. My collection's about 50-50 between CDs and vinyl records. I'm not into cassettes. That's just a little bit too obsessive. But anyway, between CDs and vinyl is what I collect. I'm going to do a room tour here in a few days coming up. I've got some stuff to organize in the back, but once that's taken care of, we'll do a walkthrough of the shelves. But for today, I just wanted to share with you some updates to the CD side of the collection. And we'll start that with the debut album from a band called Fiction Plane. And this is Everything Will Never Be Okay. And this came out in 2003 on MCA. And what drew me to this particular band is this guy here, the front man, Joel Sumner. And for those of you who may know, that's Sting's kid. So I thought, it's kind of intriguing. I'll check this out. And my biggest question was, is he going to sound like Sting? And yeah, sort of, to a degree. There's some similarities there, but not a lot. Actually, his voice seemed to me a little bit whiny to begin with, but it grew on me. Yeah, I think he does a pretty good job on this. It was recorded at Steer Park Studio, I think is the name of it. Sting's studio, or the studio where Sting does most of his recording. So I don't know, you want to consider this a Nepo Baby project? I don't know, maybe so, but to me it was still above average alternative rock album. There's hints of Nirvana influences. You can hear that here and there. The third track on here, Cigarette, I thought that was a highlight. It's up-tempo, catchy, got some amusing lyrics, but I think the hardest track on the album was the last one, Wise. If you want to check out one out, that's a good one to check out. It's got some grungy riffs. It actually reminds me to a pretty good degree of Filter, which is a good thing in my opinion. So yeah, I thought this was pretty interesting, pretty enjoyable actually. So I think I'm going to probably track down the remainder of this their catalog. I'm not sure if they're still, I forgot to check if they're still together or if this was just a few years kind of thing. But anyway, so this is Everything Will Never Be Okay by Fiction Plane. All right, next up, this is Take Off by The Skirts. This is the band's sophomore album, came out in 2001 on Blackliner Records. And The Skirts are an all-female pop punk band out of Sacramento, California. They've got similarities to The Breeders, Veruca Salt. So if you're into that kind of thing, this is a band you might want to check out. Really high energy stuff, as you would expect with pop punk. It was actually pretty good. I enjoyed this. Criminal Art, the lead-off track, was pretty good. It's upbeat. Some nice vocal harmonies, which are really strong throughout the whole album, which is one of their highlights. One of the things that I enjoyed about the entire album. He Loves Me is also another highlight. Third track, you might want to check that one out. It's got some sweet riffs, good groove to it. So yeah, this was a fun one. I didn't know anything about the band. Just happened to see the cover and thought I'd give it a try, and I did. I liked it. I think you would too if you're into that whole pop punk thing. This one is not on vinyl, same with the Fiction Plane that I showed earlier. I forgot to mention that has not been released on vinyl. So if you're looking to for these guys, put them into your collection. CD's the way to go. So yeah, Take Off by The Skirts. Okay, next up we have the debut album from Austra called Feel It Break. And this one came out in 2011 on Domino Records. And Austra is a female-fronted electronic pop sort of band out of Toronto, Canada. What drew me to this one was, this again was a blind buy, was this psychedelic looking cover. Definitely not psych rock, but it really is. It's really good electronic pop with chill wave elements to it. The vocals are really strong. The vocalist is Katie Stelmanis. She eventually would go on, and from what I've read, this became more of a solo project. She just took the name as an alias sort of thing, and it's not so much a band anymore. But on this one, they were a three-piece, I believe. But anyway, she's got some really strong vocals that remind me of Kate Bush at times. I think I might have said. If I didn't, then I just did. Um, yeah, this is really kind of like a haunting, but yet at the same time uplifting sort of album. Um, Even though it was really good all the way through, I thought "Lose It," the second track, was really more catching, I guess, than the entire album. It's got a really great chorus to it. That one would be one you would want to check out. But if sort of the electronic sort of chill wave is your scene, then check out Austra. "Feel It Break" is their debut album. All right, this next one was a really fun one. This is the second album from The Witches, called "On Parade." Came out in 2002 on Fall of Rome Records. Uh, the Witches are a garage psych revival band out of Detroit, comprised of members of several other local bands, the Volbeats, Electric Six, Dirt Bombs, and they kind of got together and did this as, like I said, a garage psych revival thing, and it's really fun. Like I say, some of the highlights for me were "Why Do You Make Me Feel Like That." It's got a really good groove, got some horns in there, really good catchy vocal harmonies. "Nothing Seems to Please You" is a really nice bluesy rocker. So yeah, I mean, if you're into the whole garage psych revival scene, this is an album you should check out. And anything by the Witches is worth checking out. So this is "On Parade" by the Witches. Okay, so this next one, I'm really not going to be able to show much. The cover doesn't leave anything to the imagination. Anyway, this is "Sound Capital" by the Handsome Furs. And this is their most recent album, came out in 2011 on Sub Pop. Yep. And so this is sort of an indie electro pop sort of band. Think MGMT, those kinds of bands. And I really enjoyed this. It's probably not as good as MGMT, but it's still enjoyable. It's really a duo of Alexi Perry and Dan Beckner. There's Alexi and Dan. Since this album came out, Dan has gone on a couple other things. I think Wolf Parade is one. Operators might be another one. But anyway, yeah, this was a surprise. It was a blind buy, but nevertheless, I kind of enjoyed it. I'm gonna work my way back in their catalog now. So fun stuff. Whoop, didn't get that quite covered. Anyway, Handsome Furs, Sound Capital. Check it out. And we'll head back to Michigan for this next one. This is the only release from this band. The band is 36D, and this is "Endomorphic Joy." This came out on Small Stone Records in 1995, sorry. And for those of you who don't know, Small Stone is a Detroit label. They're focused on stoner rock, psychedelic rock. And this was actually the fourth one on the label there, SS04. And that's kind of a subgenre or sub-collection of my collections, is Small Stone Records, because they put out some good stuff. I think if you're into the fuzz rock, stoner rock, you should definitely check out their catalog. But anyway, as for this, 36D was actually a band out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and they were formed by three members of a hardcore punk band from the 80s called Born Without a Face. And they got together and did this one-off of this sort of stoner psychedelic stuff. And it's okay. I mean, it's not great, but if you're into that thing and you're kind of a completist, it's worth checking out. So yeah, this is "Endomorphic Joy" by 36D, and this one is not on vinyl. And a new release this time around. This is "Hellfire and Damnation" by Saxon. This is the band's 24th studio album. Came out on Silver Lining Music just a couple of weeks ago. I think the 24th of January it was. And yeah, I've heard some talk when this was getting ready to be dropped that this was going to be a throwback to the band's 80s sound. And to a degree it is. But I think it's not really that. I think it's a good combination of that 80s hard 80s metal and the sort of power metal that the band went to over the course of the late 90s 2000s. But in the end, yeah, I really enjoyed this. I mean, it's a really, really, really strong album. Definitely one of their strongest, I think. Not my favorite. My favorite is always going to be Crusader, but I still enjoyed this one. In particular, Madame Guillotine. That just had some super heavy guitar tone and strong bass. And then there's Something in Roswell. It's another ultra heavy track that bottom end was just crushing it. So yeah, this is a really good album. So I think, you know, for Saxon fans, this was a no-brainer. But if Saxon is either you're not familiar with them or maybe you kind of lost interest in their whole power metal phase, this is a good one to get back with. And this is Hellfire and Damnation by Saxon. And back to Michigan again. This one is Nothing Fits by Tyvek. Came out in 2010 on In the Red Recordings. And this is the band's fourth album. And Tyvek were a sort of a noise punk band out of Detroit. And this one is just, I guess, what you would expect if you're familiar with noise punk. It's noisy, obviously, raw, little kind of snotty, but it's catchy with a couple of catchy bright spots, I think. Namely, Potato. Third track on here has a really nice bottom end groove to it. Underwater 2, that's my favorite track on here. That has more of a garage rock vibe to it, so a little bit more melody, a little bit more catchiness, and that was really good. And then I thought what was pretty cool was a track called Outer Limits, which is an ode to the TV show Outer Limits. That was pretty fun. So yeah, if you're into that, I wouldn't hesitate to check this out. So this is Tyvek's Nothing Fits. And next up is the second album, self-titled, from Abdullah. And this came out in 2000 on Meteor City Records. And Abdullah is a sort of a stoner doom band out of Cleveland. Totally Sabbath inspired. I would go so far as saying Sabbath worshiping, especially on this album. And there's some grunge influences in there as well. I think you can hear that, particularly with some of the vocals, although you could also make the argument that there's some Ozzy worship in the vocals as well. None of the songs really grabbed me on this album, but I still found it enjoyable. Journey to the Orange Island has a cool bass intro, but overall, I mean, like I say, it was if you want a Sabbath clone, this might be an album to check out. But I mean, it's okay, not bad. Sticking around in the collection, that's for sure. So this is the self-titled album from Abdullah. And last for today, this is the third album from Filter called The Amalgamate. And this came out in 2002 on Reprise Records. And Filter, for those you don't know, essentially is Richard Patrick's project. It's industrial tinged alt metal out of Cleveland, Ohio. And yeah, so that's pretty much what you get on this album. Now, I personally think Filter or Richard Patrick is at his best when he's taken a more melodic route. And that's kind of, he's kind of working his way towards that on this album. Where Do We Go From Here and The Only Way are two of the more melodic songs, still with a cutting edge to them. But I think, you know, that's where we're going to see him go in the future, and I think, like I said, that's where he's really strongest. But on this album, you get, I think, the whole breadth of his style, from that melodic sort of stuff to the more Nine Inch Nails kind of industrial, rough, kind of raw stuff. So if you're a Filter fan, you probably already got this one. But if you don't know Filter, I don't know if this is the strongest album. It's not my favorite, but it's enjoyable nonetheless. Worth checking out if you don't know Filter. Anyway, this is The Amalgamate by Filter. All right, well, that'll do it. Thanks for sticking with me. I appreciate you taking the time to take a look at these CDs that I've just recently added. If you have any thoughts on any of them, I'd love to hear from you. Anything that you think I might want to check out based on what you saw, please let me know in the comments. And maybe if you get some time or don't mind, if you wouldn't mind giving me a like or even a subscribe would be awesome. So appreciate you, and I hope to see you again next time. Till then, take care.